want to take a second to acknowledge the traditional homelands of Anishinaabe. The way north, I guess, could loosely be translated as Gwaed Nung, that place that is north. And this is a nonfiction piece, actually, about my experience over the last number of years of being a jingle dress dancer. And we're off. Summer 1992. When you make a jingle dress, you have to be in the right frame of mind. Robelle's voice was soft, but her tone serious, parental. You have to be in a good place. Of course, it's always a good idea to smudge. I try to keep smudge going the entire time I roll cones. Robelle wasn't old enough to be my mom, but her voice was confident. Her long, dark hair almost reached her waistline. We sat across from each other at her large dining room table that had been converted to a temporary sewing center. A large abalone shell about the size of a soup bowl was placed between us. Gray sage leaves were made into small, round bundles about the size of grapes. These tiny balls of leaves were burning steadily in the shell, creating a thin line of smoke. The smell was bitter and gave the air a slightly harsh taste. But it was familiar and it felt safe. Robelle shared with me the responsibilities of a jingle dress dancer as I cut dozens and dozens of Copenhagen snuff can lids. Collecting lids was not an easy task. We often had to answer to looks of confusion upon asking for the lids. Each lid carried a tart scent of tobacco and meadow. My job was to trim the sides of the lid so that I was working with a flat, round piece of metal, and Robelle was helping me. We used scissors that were not made for cutting metal. My 23-year-old hands were tired and not as self-assured as Robelle's. The muscles between my right thumb and index finger cramped. My palm throbbed, but I continued without complaint. I held the lid with my left hand and the scissors in my right. I trimmed it in a counterclockwise motion until a slender ringlet of metal was formed and the lid itself was flat. Over and over and over again, I cut these lids, hundreds of them. Ringlet after discarded metal ringlet, vaguely artistic, prickly against my tender fingertips. Robelle's method was quick and simple. Take the scissors, cut the lip with one turn of the lid, and voila, flat metal. Tobacco stained my hands. My fingertips ached from the sharpness of the metal. A small cut on the inside of my index finger made me wince. I licked the cut immediately, and my tongue recoiled. Tobacco dust. I hung my tongue out for a taste of fresh air. Robelle took notice. Even as you cut yourself now, you are sacrificing yourself for your people. This is a dress of healing for others, not for you. Robelle stood up from the dining room table and went to the kitchen sink. Not missing a beat, she handed me a moist paper towel, sat back down, and went on with her teachings. This first dress is the only dress that I will help you with. After that, you are on your own. It will be your turn to pass these teachings on to someone else. She continued to helping me cut the lids. She was much quicker than I was, and with what looked to be so little effort. Each time you roll a cone, it represents a prayer for someone. Robelle put more sage in the shell and lit it with a match. After it caught the flame, she waved her hand over the leaves to create smoke. This is why you must first be in a good place yourself. Each cone may be dedicated to someone different, or several cones may be for the same person, maybe one who was very sick. After all the lids were cut, I rolled each one with needle nose pliers. Robelle could not help me with this. These were my prayers. The muscles in my palms and fingers loosened with each turn of the needle nose pliers, and I felt inadequate to be, quote, praying for the people, unquote. I kept these prayers in my head. First, I prayed for my mom, and then I rolled a cone. Not an easy task. Robelle showed me a couple of times how to roll these lids into cones, and her hands moved so confidently, and she made it look too easy. I fumbled with the pliers as I turned the metal. I tried to avoid the sharp edges. Pretty soon I got the hang of it and returned to my silent prayers. I prayed for my parents, family, friends. I prayed for my husband. I prayed for people I knew were sick. I prayed for my friend's son who suffered from leukemia. What if you run out of people to pray for? Silly question. Robel had been lining up patterns and cutting up fabric. She looked up for a moment to answer me. Prayer is a personal thing. Just pray from your heart. It will come to you. Hoping that I wasn't cheating, I started over with my mental list, but this time I was more specific with everyone's problems. My dad's knees were bothering him again. My mom was facing more hearing loss. This time, the prayers were tougher, but came easier. More and more faces began to appear beneath the closed eyelids. Some people needed more than one cone. Matt, my friend's son with leukemia, needed at least 10 cones.